In today's episode, I'm talking to Jay, and Jay has a remarkable story, and you'll get to hear that in this episode. What we did, however, not talk about in a particular episode in itself, it is the broader goal of Jay. He has written a book, and it is called It's Always Too Soon to Quit. And Jay, as you will learn in this episode, has had to endure remarkable pain, physical pain, through a series of injuries and accidents and very unfortunate circumstances. Today, he is partially disabled, and he is probably the strongest man I've ever had the privilege of talking to, in the sense that he has so much will to live. And that is something that I found incredibly impressive. Granted, that he has so many reasons to give up and could have given up so many times in life, but never did. And he had the mindset of someone so strong and the endurance of someone so impressive that he has gotten awards for this at hospitals and in other numerous occasions. I do want to give the disclosure there's a lot of conversation about very physical injuries, a lot of descriptions of this. So that's something to be aware of as Jay is sharing his story. But it is worth it, because if there's something you'll be left with at the end of this episode, it's that the only limitation is in your mind. And that is what Jay is teaching us today. Welcome to another episode of Becoming Secure with Magsmindset. Well, to start off, Jay,
Sure.
I'm really thankful that you're here to chat with me, because what actually triggered me to want to have this conversation is that I used to have this thought growing up sometimes where if I was sick or if I had something, some sort of pain in my knee when I was playing soccer or whatnot, something that would limit me from being able to do what I wanted to do for a very limited amount of time, I could find
Mhm.
myself having thoughts like, um, especially watching TV, and I would see other people with certain disabilities and limitations that would well hinder them from doing what I perceived as greatly valuable. And because my
Right.
mindset was where it was at, I would think thoughts like, oh my gosh, like how do they find a will to live? Like how can they even do this? I remember seeing this video of someone who didn't even have arms and feet, and I was like, why even live? Which is a crazy thing to say and even think. But I want to have this conversation with you because I know that you have survived numerous near life experiences. You've
Mhm.
survived 73 surgeries, and you said that you're nearly disabled. And you're also this person, based on on your profile, that seemingly love life and is so full of joy and
Oh,
wisdom as
yeah.
to find and create value in your life. So I would love for you to introduce yourself to my listeners and talk about the things that you've gone through. But most importantly, I would love to tap into the mindset of it all, because I do believe that all of us have some sort of scarcity mindset from one area to another, and not really being able to find value with what we've got because we're always looking at what we're lacking. And I want to know that journey for you, what it was like to go from lacking and then to actually train your mind into seeing everything that is actually valuable with what you got.
That's very well said, Mags. I mean, Maggie, you got good thoughts, and it is. I don't know that I recall. I've been disabled well, I'm not disabled. I'm differently abled, is how I look at it. And when somebody gets, oh, you're disabled, I go, no, I'm a cripple. Disabled is between the ears. Disabled is between your ears. I asked this to somebody the other day. I said, well, would you rather have everything from your shoulders up or everything from your shoulders down?
Mm.
Okay. Well, the mindset to me is I'd rather be in bed and be paralyzed and be able to have somebody function with my body because they can't operate my brain. They can't operate my mindset. They can't operate my thought, my feelings, my emotions, but they can move my leg here or there. And but your observation and your comment about wondering, gosh, what would it be like? But when I was raised on a farm, uh, a big working farm with cattle and hogs and all that stuff. There were a lot of three-legged dogs running around. I mean, the farmers, a lot of farmers had three-legged dogs. Well, what happened was the dog would get close to a farm implement and the disc would run over it and cut its leg off. Well, they
Mm,
take it to the vet would sew it up, and the dog would run just like chase rabbits and pheasants and it was, it didn't bother it because the dog didn't realize he couldn't move. He
mm,
realized, hey, I can still get around, so I'll just go. And they live just a normal life.
mm,
So my my life started out very, very normal, I guess, as a farm kid, but a lot of responsibility, feeding calves and stuff like that. When I was right after a week after I turned, well, my birthday's New Year's Eve, so tomorrow night, and in 1966, New Year's Eve 66, I turned 17. And that within that next week, I was on a feeding auger. It's got a picture of an auger in my book I wrote. Um, but make a long story short, it got turned on. I was on top of it walking down it because I had to go a few feet to get off of it. And there was a big snow drift over here. It was cold. It was northern Illinois. It was probably 10 below zero and,
mm,
lots of snow. And um, but it got turned on for just a split second and turned off. Well, it broke my right ankle. It sliced my boot open. The blood was out. But I was in the process of launching myself off into the snowbank to begin with,
mm,
and thank God I was because nothing else happened. But if
mm.
it would have stayed on for a second and a half and my foot would have wrapped on around that auger, I'd have turned into sausage.
Oh my
I'd have been,
gosh,
I'd have been hamburger. And
that's
my grandfather, who was in the silage shed, wouldn't have probably have even noticed me because my body would have been all mixed up with the silage going through in the auger. So I would have, whatever happened to Jay? Well, the cattle were eating me, or whatever, or just leaving parts of me and bone. So that played a big part in my mental outlook on how easily you can go because I've lost cousins in farm accidents and
mm,
it's gone. It's now.
mm,
It's just like if you fell off your chair, you're dead,
mm,
and you feel the pain from the time you're falling off the chair to on the floor for just a second and it's gone.
mm,
But I got off I left the farm, went in the Marine Corps, enlisted when I was 17, at the end of my 17th year, and one of my buddies said, "Let's go get in the Army." And well, I really wanted to go in the Marine Corps anyhow because it was the hardest and the toughest and besides that, I had a cousin that had been in the Marine Corps from 60 to 64, and he said, "Do not ever go in the Marine Corps. Don't
mm.
ever do that." So, being the 17-year-old kid, I like, okay, Bob, I got you. But uh but this guy says, let's go up and enlist in the army. Well, I went up to Chicago on a train, and the army didn't want me because I had a broken right ankle and I was 40% colorblind. So I go, oh, okay, well, that's all right. I didn't want to go in the army anyhow. So I went back up like 6 weeks later uh, to enlist in the Marine Corps. And I did the same tests and the same thing. And they said, I said, and they wanted me to go swear in, I hereby hold up my, you say the oath, right? And um, I said, I swear in. I said, you mean my color blindness or my broken right ankle or any of that? And they said, can you shoot? And I said, well, I'm a real good shot. And they go, "Oh, you're in the Marine Corps, so,
Wow.
I go, okay, and then I didn't get to go for about 4 or 5 months. My grandfather had a heart attack and I got put on this thing. And we had to bring the crops in and put crops back, take the crops out of the field and put the crops back in. And then I got into the Marine Corps May 31st, 1968. But Vietnam was going crazy then, I mean,
Mm,
combat. And so they cut your 14-week boot camp to 9 weeks just to
mm,
get you through. And you get everything they taught you in 14 weeks, you learned in 9.
mm,
But at any rate, I did that. I ended up in criminal intelligence. I started out in tanks, but I ended up in criminal intelligence. And on the night of, I had a young man. Well, we were all young men at the time, but that sounds funny to say that. But I had a guy that I stopped. I went into Oceanside, next to Camp Pendleton, and just to see him, just to say hi. I was just going into town. That's all I was doing. Well, I got there, and he'd been married 6 months. His wife, she had been from Baltimore area, had been in California about 4 months. And make a long story short, he worked for me. He was a corporal. I was a sergeant, and uh, we were undercover criminal intelligence. And so some people had found out where he was lived,
Mm.
and they were beating him to death. And they cut him, his skull was cut open, his ear was hanging off down into his throat. So I got his wife to get me a compress and some alcohol. She brought vodka, but that was okay. It was whatever. And we I got him in the car and we headed back to base. And the only thing I could think of was get him to emergency as fast as I could because I didn't know how much he bled out and he was bleeding a lot.
Yeah.
So on the way there, a semi had pulled out. It was dark. There were 4 or 5 cars behind us. Um, the Make a long story short, we hit the semi and the drivers. He
Mm.
pulled across the road, had no lights on, no reflectors. Everything was covered with dirt. The cars behind us, a couple of them were officers. One was a full bird colonel. And he said he never saw the semi till we hit it.
Mm.
So the car compressed and accordioned, and we all were on fire inside. There was a fire under the hood, under the dash, and in the trunk. And 3 Marines coming the other direction uh, didn't know what it was. And they got there and they saw what it was. And you're in civilian clothes, so they don't know we're Marines. But they got us out and they said that the we myself and Linda, his wife, were dead, but Roy was still alive. And he was burned real bad,
Mm.
60%. But he was missing his eyelids were burned off. He had a crushed pelvis and stuff like that. But I the only thing I have remember the only thing I don't remember any of that. That's just from what's been written. But at the hospital, uh, I remember having an out of body experience, and they had said I was dead, and the 3 doctors that had been working on me started to leave. They were leaving. And another doctor came in, and his name was Dr. Gray. And I could tell it because I could read his badge. And I was floating up against the ceiling, and everything was very red. And I was very violent. I was screaming. I wanted to get down there and choke them to death because
Mm.
they weren't working on me. And I felt like I was alive, but they had quit working. They couldn't find anything. So this Dr. Gray was an oral surgeon. And maybe he got called because they had to dig my head out of the steering wheel. My head was crushed up here. I've got third-degree burns on my skull. Um, my face was gone, 32 facial fractures, both, all your eye sockets, everything was not good. So anyhow, for some reason, he determined that my broken ribs may have punctured my lungs and I was bleeding. I bled to death inside. I drowned in my own blood.
Mm.
But anyhow, he cut me a tracheotomy and the blood just exploded like a whale surfacing.
Mm.
And after that, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, I don't remember it re-entering my body. I just know I was back. I mean, or I don't know I was back, excuse me. I, I, I I don't remember it. I never left the room. I
Mm.
was stuck against the ceiling. Now, if I would have died, would I have just, I guess, gone through the ceiling and out the roof and gone out to heaven or wherever, to purgatory or where was I going to go? And, but going through the coma, going through then they put me back in another coma for a couple more weeks because I was so bad. But, you know, I never, I don't recall thinking that this is the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I never, after I was conscious, you know what I'm saying? When I got because I used to do things today that nobody today would even be allowed. I mean, I suctioned out my own tracheotomy. I stuck the tube into my lungs and, did all that. And And my upper palate and my mouth, where you've got when you run your tongue over the top of your mouth, you feel the little ridges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got a scar about this big that goes all the way through it. Well, my jaws were ripped completely apart, so I could stick my tongue up into my nasal passage. And I remember that, it was like, I know it sounds gross, but you could do it.
Yeah.
And so they doing all the oral surgeries and the facial reconstruction, they put it back together, and I've got that scar. So when I go to a new dentist or somebody for something, they go like, good God, what happened? They've never seen anything like that, and I'm going, well, you haven't been practicing long enough, I guess, because,
Oh my gosh.
you know, but I never,
But
and I spent a year in the Naval Hospital. Go ahead.
sorry, I
You were
was
going to ask
just
something?
yeah, no, you're just sharing so much, and I mean, I'm shocked because you're talking with such nonchalant over it as it's just like this matter of fact. And maybe it's just my limited view of the world or experience of such dramatic, traumatic events. Because you're sharing all of this, and in my head, I'm like, how did you even survive? It all sounds so dramatic. It all sounds so um impossible in many ways. How old were you when all of this was going on?
I 19.
You were 19 when you were in this
Mm.
accident and you nearly died. Is this when you also became disabled, or what was
No,
the
well,
further consequences from this
s-
accident?
well, some of the other things that, what I want to mention something that when I came out of my induced coma, I could hear a voice, and my mother was there.
Mm,
And I remember a tear. I couldn't talk. I was facially screwed up, I mean, bad and everything else. My femurs were broken and compound fracture of the femurs and pelvises and knees and ankles. My left foot was turned backwards. Uh, she didn't recognize me. She didn't know who I was. And but I remember hearing her voice and a tear coming out of my left eye. I remember to this day, it was just like you put a big match out and drew that match down your cheek. It was so hot.
mm,
It was just hot. But it was my mother. And about a week later, I would say roughly, she had a little pad of paper, and I've got the paper and I got a picture of it in my book.
oh,
Um, but I wrote on it because my hands and arms could work, and I put, "Am I going to live?"
mm,
Another page I put, "Will I die?" Another
mm,
one I put, "I love you." But the
mm,
one I put in there is, "Am I going to live?"
yeah.
Now, if I didn't say what it said, you may not read it. But once you read what it says, then you can say, "Oh, I see where it says, am I going to live?" So
Mm,
that was my training. That was my mind thought. And then I was just kind of, I can't answer you, Maggie. I don't, um, it the body and mind will heal. The body will heal. And throughout the years, I've said these words. I've said sweat dries, blood clots, broken bones heal. Suck it up. Because we have such a generation today that wants a safe space. They want this, they want that. And I'm going like, what the hell? It's like, get real. This is life. If you were in a car accident today, you lost your left leg, they're going to fix you up and you're going to keep on going.
yeah.
It's just, you just have to believe that. But to answer your question, I didn't, I got out of the hospital the end of October of 70. So basically 11 and a half months I was in the hospital. And I still had a lot of rehab to do. I had stuff to do, but I got no physical rehab or occupational therapy, no psychological care. My neck hurt. My back killed me the whole time. I was in traction. I was in bed for 8.5 months.
Mm,
Couldn't get out of bed because I had
mm,
all this. I had other things happen, but I recouped well enough but not enough. My dad quit feeding cattle. We took the silos down. I never farmed. I always thought I would be a, run a big farm and be a
mm.
pilot. Like I had soloed when I was 14 years old,
Yeah.
and I thought I'd be an ag pilot. Spray crops and all this other stuff, and that just wasn't to be. So that part. didn't work. And then that's kind of what got me into being an entrepreneur, starting different businesses and doing things because I could, you gotta be able to, you have to do what you can do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you got
Yeah.
like this hand doesn't work. It's dead. It's useless. But yet I can use the palm of my hand to push something because my
Mm.
shoulder works. Or I
Yeah.
can, I don't have any tricep, so I can't push away. I can go like this, but
Mm.
I can't if I hold it back, I can't push it up in the air. It
Mm.
won't even lift its own weight.
Wow.
So you have to determine what you can do. And that gets back to my question. Would you rather have what you got from your shoulders up or have what you have from your shoulders down? Oh,
Yeah.
I can run, I can do all this. But if you don't have a brain or a mind, where are you running to? What are you going to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
You
Oh
know?
my gosh. You're teaching me so much about a different type of resilience and also this ability to look at to use your words like what you can do because with your mind and the way that you think, there's still so much that can be done. And
Oh,
we have so many skills that are beyond our physicality. Um, so I
a
find this
lot.
very admiring, especially like I've never broken anything in my life. I've never had a broken bone or anything like that.
Don't
I
say
have
that. Don't say that. You
well,
might
I'm just
happen this
saying
after.
it's still true that that's never happened
Yeah.
before. But what you're teaching me and what you're saying is that the body will find a way to heal itself. There's still value in life, and there's still going to be many ways in which we can have a fruitful, valuable life just because just because you might lack some sort of physicality. And I think that's pretty remarkable what your body was able to endure and to heal after having been through such a traumatic
Mhm.
experience. But tell me,
It,
what did your life look like from that moment on when you were
well,
well from that moment when you were I could you could say kind of physically healed in that sense.
when I got out of the hospital, I had big leg braces that went all the way up to the crack of my fanny, and I had to wear those for quite a while. But I was real good at detailing. In the Marine Corps, everything is detail.
Yeah.
So I started a detail business on cars and trucks and pickup stuff, and I lived in outside a small farm town, but I did what I could do for the dealerships there, and then we started probably what was it. I look back, probably the first mobile detail business in the nation. I don't know. It could have been. I mean, that was 1970, or
Mm.
71, excuse me. And uh, but then I started flipping cars and buying Corvettes and selling them, and somebody trade a Mustang and then a Chevelle and a Pontiac Grand Prix, and so I was doing that. I started a trucking company, uh, and so there were things that didn't limit me because you can do what you want. Your mind is a phenomenal tool. It can if you realize I can't quite turn the handle this way, how can I do it if I work at it this way? You
Mm.
don't have to change directions a long way to change the outcome. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It
In other
does
words,
make
if you're if
sense.
you're if you drive off the road just a little bit, a half an inch, you'll probably get back on the road. But if you drive off the road 4 inches, that's further. Now, what if your tire flips off the road? It's muddy and it pulls you down into a ditch and there's a tree. Now you hit the tree with the car and you end up dying,
Mm.
or get injured very badly, or some passenger. It doesn't take much to change the outcome.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, so I went on, and then uh, in beginning of September 1973, I had a drunk hit me almost head on, way out in the cornfields on a highway, and he didn't have his seatbelt on, got thrown out of his pickup truck and run over by his truck and killed. And I rolled several times. And I remember the tearing of the car, the motor got ripped out, the side of the car was ripped off. I was trapped underneath. We rolled several times. And I remember I remember stopping and all the glass in my mouth, uh, and the cuts and then the the part of the windshield that holds your windshield up on the left, the windshield pillar on the left side of the car, it came off, and or was ripped loose, and it ripped my shoulder out and put the bone out the back of my arm, severed the deltoid muscle. I had broken ribs again, and 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 it took about 25 minutes to half hour for anybody to get there. I mean, somebody came and saw there was an accident. I was in the car. So they went to get somebody, but the closest town was 4 or 5 miles away. And by the time they find somebody in a little town of 500 people to get them to go out and help save you, that's a long time. And
Yeah.
so I had bled out. I'd bled out and I was floating up in the sky. I was ascending into heaven, or I was ascending somewhere. And I don't remember. And in both of those accidents, I don't recall any pain. None. Zero. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have it at the time, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Whether I put it out of my mind, I don't remember. And when I wrote the book, I I had to go back and I dictated the book, and then the lady wrote it for me because I can't write very good. And uh, I had to remember things that I was trying to forget for 56 years,
Mm.
because you don't want to remember that. It's not a happy memory. It's not like, oh, I went to a wedding and I had a little bit too much to drink and I danced I had a good time, and that's not the way it was. It was the opposite.
Yeah.
And so you try to forget that. That's why you don't remember major bad things. God's got something that blocks it out of your being. But after that accident, I recouped. I had a punctured lung again. Uh, I remember my arm. I couldn't. You have to take your fingers and walk your fingers up the wall like that because you can't lift your arm because your
Hmm.
deltoid muscle's severed, and then the bone's sticking out, all that stuff. And so I um, I moved on afterwards slowly, started some other businesses, worked for a company out of Charlotte, North Carolina, was a regional manager in the northern United States. Um, and then that they weren't sending me the correct paycheck. So I parked their van at a regional airport and walked away from it and got a job selling yellow pages, which that's not something in you may remember a
I
history of
remember
yellow
it.
pages. Okay, well, good, because they were like computers today.
Yeah.
And they were your answer book. I mean, that's where you got stuff. But I got a job with GTE selling yellow pages, and I started February 1st, 1981, and did excellent. I mean, I just was top of the thing because I like people. I like to help. To me, helping, the more people you help, the better person you become.
Yeah.
And I believe if you look at, it's like if I was going to help you with something, what is it you're trying to do? What direction are you going? What do you need? And then all of those things like that, and then supply a need or a help in a direction you need to go that's going to improve you.
Hmm.
And as you're improved, you can sit back and say, well, Jay helped me do this, or he
Yeah.
showed me this, or he taught me this. And you don't have to say it, but it's just in your mind. That's where it came from. So to me, the yellow pages, if you had a business that you were a plumber, okay, and you only have an ad under plumbing, I would believe that, okay, well, you don't have an ad under hot water heaters. What if your hot water heater blows up and you're over here and you're going to pick up the yellow pages and you're going to look in the phone book for somebody to fix your hot water heater? Are you going to look under plumbers, or are you going to look under hot water heaters? Okay. Well, maybe somebody looks under plumbers and some people look under hot water heaters. And it says 24-hour emergency service. Okay, you call that person. And
Yeah.
so it's the more you work for your client and help them with their advertising program and make it good, then their clients, the people out in the houses, they know who to call or how to find them. So to me, that was more important. But on July 4th, 1981, I jumped in the swimming pool feet first. I was married 3 weeks the day that it happened, my second wife, and I broke my neck in 4 places and drowned. And I I don't remember. I remember jumping in, but I don't remember hitting the bottom. I don't remember pain. I don't remember. The only thing I remember is drowning. And I remember people swimming over me because I could look up and see somebody swimming along like this, or jumping in in the pool. It was after we played volleyball all day, and everybody was just hot. And somebody said, "Hey, I got a new in-ground pool." Okay, well, let's go down and go to it. And I rode my motorcycle on there. My wife rode with me. We went over and drove to it. And I'd been drinking, but I wasn't so inebriated I couldn't ride my motorcycle over there and park it safely and walk up there. And I don't. I think that the issue is, but I don't know. I was just underneath it, and I remember I got to breathe, and there's two functions that you have no control over. None. Is your heartbeat and your breathing. You can think you do, but if you start to think right now, I have to breathe in, breathe out, because if you don't breathe in and out, you can't just breathe in. You got to do it. And it's got to be all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm breathing as I'm talking, and my heart's beating the whole time. Or if I had to think about my heart beating, so but when I go like scratch like that, that's a voluntary action. Okay, and
Yeah.
this hand is the only thing I've got that works. My wrist is fused and pinned and all that, but my fingers work and my hand work. So excuse me. Um, but I was under long enough, and somebody had said, "Hey, let's go down and get him. There's something wrong. He's not coming back up." And I well, somebody made a comment. They said he's a crazy Marine, man. If you go down there to get him, he's going to grab a hold of you and hold on to you and hold you under. And that's what they said. So, but anyhow, after when I drowned, I knew that I had to breathe. And when and I'm sure you've been in a swimming pool where somebody's come up to your ear and talked to you and said, "Hey, Maggie, let's go get an ice cream cone," or let's whatever. And what do you hear? You hear nothing but blah, 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 blah. There's no voice really.
Under the
It's
water,
just
you mean?
air. Yes.
Yeah, no,
It's
you
just
can't.
it's just it's just air bubbles.
Yeah.
And so when I took my when I breathed either through my nose, my mouth, or both to get air, it was and it sounded like somebody was talking in my ear. It had that bubbly sound.
Mm,
And then everything went dark instantly.
mm.
I was gone.
Did you
And
say that when you jumped into the pool, did you say head first or feet first? Because I thought you said
feet feet
feet.
feet first.
Okay, so how did you manage to break your neck?
When you drive a hammerhead down on a handle, you
Yeah.
drive it down like this, and it compresses it. And so what happened was I compressed it. And looking back, several of my neurosurgeons over the years, or my neurosurgeons, I almost said orthopedic, that was something else. But uh, they believe that so I've had 15 back surgeries, and some people only have one or two and they think they're in a lot of, and my back right now is just, the pain is unbelievable, but I live with it. I have to. And so, but they believe that my back damage and my spinal cord, my cervical, because when I hit that steering wheel at 60 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour, whatever it was, into that semi, probably cracked the vertebrae, but it
Mm,
wasn't so bad that it broke my neck. I guess they don't know. And so over those years, about 2 years before I jumped in that pool, I jumped in another pool. A gal that I was dating and a buddy of mine and his girlfriend, we went skinny dipping and we jumped in a swimming pool. Well, when I jumped in, I felt this tingle and I couldn't move.
mm,
And Jimmy says, Jay says, "Come on, what are you doing? Are you peeing in the pool or something?" I go, "No, man, I can't move. I
mm,
can't move." He says, "Come on, you can move." And I couldn't. But then all of a sudden it kind of came back. So did I have a cracked vertebrae then, or maybe two or three? It wasn't bad enough to hurt anything?
mm.
Very likely.
Oh
And
my
so when I
goodness.
jumped in the swimming pool, that one doctor told me that if you jump off your living room table or your dining room table straight-legged onto the floor, there's a very likely result you will have a broken neck
Mm. My
just because of
gosh.
the compression fracture.
Wow. So
But I
how old
don't
were you
think
when this happened?
31 and a half.
31 and a half. My gosh, you'd endured a lot of physical pain.
Yeah, I had been through quite a bit, but I don't think about it. I don't. It's like, what is out there that I
Mm,
can do?
mm,
What can I accomplish regardless of this problem?
mm,
And my mom came and saw me when I was about I went through the Gardner Wells tongs. I was in a circle bed. I had a halo cast bolted in my skull. I don't know if you can see the scars there, little bolt holes. And I lost all my hair here about 6 months ago. My hair just fell out, and I had long hair. And now it's coming back. We don't know where it went or why it's coming back, but
mm.
it is what it is. So there's nothing you can do about it. So why worry about it? Just
Right.
keep moving ahead and try to help. And the only thing I think sometimes about when I die is, am I going to get asked what what did I do to help other people?
Mm,
What did I do about for good? And even though he knows, God knows, Jesus knows what you've done because he can see, he knows,
mhm,
and but I think that's more important. But I was in the hospital, I was in the rehab center. I spent about a month at the hospital, and they transferred me to a rehab center. And when I was in the rehab center, about 2 months, roughly 2.5 months, my mom and dad had come to visit. I was about 400, 500 miles from home. And my mom asked me, and I wasn't having a good day or something. I don't, or maybe I was having an okay day. And she just said, are you okay? And I just said, Mom, why me? And it wasn't woe is me. It was just like, why me? What have I done? I'm not, I've thrown an outhouse in a lake. I've done some mischievous stuff, but I'm not a bad person. I didn't go out and murder somebody. I didn't rob stores. I didn't, all that stuff. So what, and it's not the first time, if it was the first time, but this is the third time
mm.
that I've been to where I should not be here, you
Yeah.
know. And she said to me, she said, Jay, you always got to remember, you jumped in the pool. It was God that helped bring you back out.
Wow.
And when you think about that, and there's a book out called "What When uh, When Bad Things Happen to Good People." It's by a Rabbi Cushman.
Mm,
And he gives a really, it's just an introspective dialogue that really makes you stop and think. And so I don't know, but I never quit. And never quitting. And the title of my book is The Strength Within You.
mm.
And the subtitle is It's Always Too Soon to Quit.
Yeah.
And that's where and I have always been like that. It's like when I was a little kid, when I got in trouble, it's like, oh yeah, you think you can stop me from doing that? You haven't seen anything, buddy. I'm going to do it more. And so I think that's something, Maggie, that a lot of people have to stop and understand. It's like when I got up to be here with you this morning, obviously I'm in a different time zone, and I got up an extra hour and a half early, to get in the shower because I've got to use my side railing to get out of bed. I have to drag my paralyzed legs over and get them on a scooter. I have to swivel around and get onto the scooter. I have to get off the scooter to get into the shower. I have to get, it's a long, hard process and getting dried off, getting dressed, getting all that by yourself, and I can do it, but it takes me a long time. And the pain is terrible, but you just keep going. I don't have an answer for what keeps you going. I think that's something that's innate within you as a person.
Mm,
It's kind of like you said, you look at somebody and goes, you know, uh, wow, they're missing a leg. I'm glad I'm not missing a leg, or I wouldn't be able to run the hurdles, or I
Yeah.
couldn't play soccer,
Yeah.
you know, and all that. And when I've been in hotel lobbies or someplace and I see somebody in a wheelchair, a young person or a middle-aged person, doesn't matter. I go over and I tell the people because they always got some attendants with them, and I'll just say, oh, excuse me, but may I, if you don't mind, was this a spinal cord injury? Oh no, they have ALS, or they've got multiple MS, or they've got something else, or maybe it was a spinal cord injury. And and people that I'm with go, oh no, don't say anything, don't say anything. I go, "And why? They're a person, they're alive, they're a human." And so I go and say and introduce myself, say about it, we talk a little bit. And when they see that I can't get around, or I was in a wheelchair, or I was on a walker, I mean, after I broke my neck, they told me I would never move. I'm going to back up a second. And I thought, no, I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to walk out of here. And it was a mindset. I never, ever, ever doubted that I would walk out, which I did. Very emotional. Tears. Oh my God. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was worse walking out because I was crying so hard. And well, I still have my halo cast bolted in my skull. The blood was running down. They didn't want me to walk out. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. I've trained and I have worked for months to do this. And when I walk, you know how when you go out of a hospital, they got the two sets of doors. I don't
Hmm.
know why, but they do. And I was between the two sets of doors and I realized the struggle I was having, but I could make it to the car where my wife was standing outside. And and I'm not going to get into it too much because I get tears. Uh, but when I got between the two doors, I realized I was going to make it.
Mm.
And and when I got to that second set of doors, that I could feel the blood running down. I could feel the emotion, and the emotion was unreal. And there must have been 100, 150 people, doctors, nurses, patients, people that didn't know me, other people that were going, go, Jay, go, Jay, go, Jay, or go, go. And that added to the emotional thing.
Yeah.
And the tears were just, oh my God. It was just, I had to do it. I had
Yeah.
to do it. And once I tasted that freedom, I could never go back,
Mm.
you know? And anyhow, but so things kept on. Uh they had me back the next year as patient of the year. And they had never had Sister Kenny Institute in Minneapolis had been there 86 years. It's been there, that was 44 years ago, the last 4th of July that I broke my neck. And they've never had a patient of the year before or since. I was the only one they've ever had. They had a patient of the year for like hands or arms or something like that. And Sister Kenny Institute does only TBI, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injuries, or strokes. That's all they do.
Mm.
And they're attached to a giant hospital with 6,500 employees. But I mean, the big hospital does. But they had me back as patient of the year. And it was because, and my plaque is sitting over here, and it says for exceptional rehabilitational achievement and attitude.
Mm.
Because I would talk to people, like I would go down the hallway, they'd be pushing me to physical therapy, or later on when I was able to kind of be able to get there slowly. It took me forever to do it. But I would go by a room and here's a young lady named Maggie. And I would go, it'd say Maggie Smith. Okay. And I go like, hi, Maggie, my name is Jay. I'm in a room down here. Are you doing okay today? And I'm in a wheelchair with a halo cast bolted in my skull, right? And you're in bed. Maybe you've got a halo cast too. It's like, I know we're not sisters and brothers, but we're kind of the same, aren't we? We kind of have this goofy looking apparatus bolted to our skull. And so I would ask, how are you doing? What are your goals? And I would try to get out of the people what they wanted to attain. Where did they want to go? Because
Yeah.
my mind didn't stop at being paralyzed. It
Yeah.
didn't stop. I wanted to go. I wanted to improve, and I wanted others to improve.
Yeah.
And so I think that that attitude, and I always overachieved. It's like telling you, you got to, you mentioned soccer. My, we've got adopted twins that are a little boy and girl. They're 8 years old. We've had them since they were 3 weeks old. And I'm getting pretty old for that, but you know, I still got him. And he loves soccer,
Mm.
but when we were kids, we never knew what the word soccer was because you never had it in America.
Mm.
Maybe it was, but you never saw it.
Mm.
And but I don't know what I'm just trying to say is I guess that you just can't quit trying. You have to always have these things. And people ask me, they would get upset with me because I would talk about what happened in the Marine Corps. But what happened in the Marine Corps was very important because I overcame very bad problems. And what did I overcome there that can help me now?
Yeah.
You know? And you were supposed to rest between physical therapy and occupational therapy, and I never rested. So they
Yeah.
were always upset with me because uh, I didn't only work to the point of exhaustion, I worked past the point of exhaustion. And the other thing they were concerned about was my mental stability, um, how I would relate mentally when I found out I was never going to walk.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that until about 5 years after I was out. I read it in the paperwork. But if they had told me then, I, it would have just probably made me madder, you know. But I
Yeah.
offer a lot to prayer because I had a lot of prayer. I had I had a gentleman that prayed for me that I didn't know when I first broke my neck, and he prayed that I would be able to move, I would be able to walk. He went to a church that had about 5,000 people. He went to three services that had 12 to 1,500, asked for prayer,
Mm.
and for all the people, my mother, of course, and so on. So I I believe there's a difference between hope and a difference between prayer and belief
Yeah.
because you can hope something's going to happen. But if you truly believe, if Maggie believes in her heart, no matter what, something's going to happen, it more than likely is going to happen. She's going to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
If you hope it's going to happen, you just like, oh, I hope I'm going to win the lottery.
Yeah.
That's a hope. I
That's
don't,
a hope.
that's something you can't believe in. That doesn't mean anything about it, but it's something within yourself. But I went back to work. They told me, if you don't make it, can't keep you. But I went back to work with leg braces on, crutches, carrying a briefcase in the snow drifts. I did it all, and I popped up to number one again. I did very, very well. I mean, when they retired me when I was 41 because I had had too many surgeries and I would fall down and I it wasn't good. And so I was a risk, but I was doing, I had won every award they ever had. I'd won multiples of the awards, and it wasn't bragging or complaining. And when they gave me my last award, it was like, how do you do this? Well, it's because I don't care about the awards. I care about helping people.
Yeah.
I care about helping you get ahead. It's like, something to discuss is like, you've got a little scar above your left eye.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, okay. It'd be interesting to know how you got that. You were riding
I
a
wish I
bicycle, you
could tell
fell.
you.
Go for it.
I have high, well, that's a funny thing actually, because I've always asked my mom, like, what happened? Like, how did I get it? And I
Oh,
keep
so
make,
when you were very young.
yeah, I've had it my whole life. And I always make this joke that I bet my brothers lost me in the on the floor or something, and they just like are too embarrassed to say it. She does just kind of like brush it off as like, yeah, you fell. And it's like, okay, I guess that's it then. I've had this scar my whole life. Um, but I mean, I must say, Jay, you've shared so much valuable wisdom, and you said sometimes like, I don't know how to answer your question, but you are answering the question. You have found value in life in helping others. It's not so much about what you did or didn't endure. It's about how that is demonstrating resilience that other people can derive value from. And I think that is probably the most beautiful lesson that I can take away from all of this, because it really doesn't necessarily matter so much like what is going on in our heads and all of like us. We're so obsessed with ourselves these days, but where it seems as though you're finding value is when you can show up for others. And I love that. I think that's beautiful. That's a really great
That's
calling.
well, it's a, I mean, I went for quite a while with just lots of surgeries. And then about 18, let's see, I had my brainstem surgeries. I was able to walk with leg braces and a cane, and I fell down quite a bit, but I got back up. And people are stronger. I would rather have somebody that's stronger is somebody that's fallen down and gets back up than somebody that's never fallen.
Yeah.
That's just a common sense thing. But I was on a walker. I mean, on a walker. I was with my cane and leg braces, or without a cane, and I'd fall down in leg braces for about 15 or 16 years. And then I had brainstem surgeries, and I shouldn't be moving anything from my shoulders down at all, none, because of something in my neck. And it's a long story. I'm not going to go there. Um, but when I had my or brainstem surgeries, I had to be on a walker. And I was on a walker for 16 or 17 years, and now I'm in a power wheelchair because it's gotten worse. But that doesn't stop me. I got a van in my garage with a ramp. I got hand controls. I move my seat back and I go do something, And just the other day, a year and a half, well, I had MRSA staph infection, which has only got about a 25% survival rate for young people, and that's if they're in good condition. And I was in bad condition to begin with. I mean, from all the problems, but I got through it.
Mm.
And it's a long story. And then 4 years ago, I had uh, uh, COVID Delta that the twins brought home from daycare, and my wife had it and took ivermectin, and she was over it in 5 days. She had some pneumonia afterwards, but I got it. I mean, I had it the whole time. I didn't even know it, you
Mm.
know. And so they took me in. My blood oxygen was 20 points below a heart attack, and but the doctor told me when I was spent 5 months in the hospitals, uh, in four different hospitals, and the doctor that let me out of the first hospital told me, he said, Jay, he said, you were so well when we told your wife to go home and make funeral arrangements because you weren't going to make it. We never had anybody make it. And you were 71 years old. You weren't obese. You're not fat. You're not heavy. You didn't have uh, what's that d- uh, 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 I can't think of the name of it. Uh, Anyhow, it's something you have in your blood that those people, oh, when you eat too much sugar and stuff, it's what's it?
Like, you didn't have diabetes or anything, or like, yeah.
Diabetic. I wasn't diabetic, but he said you would mouth to me like, "Am I going to make it?" And I would tell you, "Well, I don't know," because I didn't want to say no because we had never had anybody make it. But he said, you would always tell me back, "Well, I'm going to beat this mother effer, or this effing thing isn't going to hurt me." It's like that's how you were the whole time. And you had a bad attitude. I mean, a good attitude. You got mad about it. And I think that your attitude is what drove you through it because you
Yeah.
weren't going to stop.
Yeah.
And so I think that something you said there before, people can either make the choice to say, I've had enough. I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to let it go. I'm just going to quit it or whatever. And to me, I'm the opposite. I'm just I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. I am going to make it. I'm going to do something with it. I mean, I've gotten some testimonials or reviews of the book, and people said it's changed my life already. And
Mm.
I spoke to a group of kids. And you've heard of these alternative high schools, where somebody gets in trouble, like whether it's drugs or they just don't show up for school or something.
Yeah.
And anyhow, I was asked to speak at one about 20 years ago, 20 some years ago. And I was an old man then. And and I spoke, well, I turned it down 2 years. And the third year I went back, and in the last class of the last day, I want to just say something that changed my mind, changed my life. It changed my life. And it was five classes, 55 minutes each. And we were supposed to talk about our business and what we did. I had a very successful business, and then I've had another one since then. And that's kind of what I do. I don't believe you can't do it. I just believe you can do it.
Yeah,
So I find a way to make it work.
yeah.
And so anyhow, but I was talking to this class. I said, okay, here's what I do. We make trade show displays that go all the way around the world, and we do this and we do this and we do this. And that's it. I'm done. Now, what I want to talk to you about for the next 54 minutes is what it takes to get through life,
Mm,
about not quitting, about moving forward, about
yeah.
attacking, about this. Anyhow, so we got done in the last class of the last day, Maggie. I said, I said, there was a young man, there was a person, I didn't say young man or woman, there was a person in the first class today that well, first of all, I told them they were all winners. You're winners because you're here. The
Mm,
losers are out there. And I pointed at the window. And that's a truth. At least they were trying. And but I said in the first class there was a person that didn't have good eye contact, that had no eye contact. They didn't take any notes. They were just there. They were there. Now I don't care. And we hire people, and I wouldn't hire that person, sorry, that person for anything. I don't care what degrees they have. It doesn't mean that degrees don't mean anything to me. They really don't. And I just wouldn't hire him. But in this class here, there's a person that's dressed very well. They've had great eye contact. They've acknowledged comments. They've made notes. They've written stuff down. They've been observant. They've been participatory as far as, yeah, I see that, or oh my gosh. And I would hire that person today because of that input, because they have a desire to live and to better themselves. I can tell it. You
yeah,
can see it. People judge you first by what they see and then by what you say.
yeah.
And that's a fact. And so, anyhow, and I pointed at this young black girl sitting in a corner. Now, I'm a 51 or 2-year-old white man with gray hair. I had more hair then, but it's coming back. And but I pointed to her and I said, I would hire her today, you know. And so anyhow, the class ended, and long story and this and that. And I'm on my walker, and I'm getting my paperwork. I didn't have much paper, but I'm getting stuff together. And this gal, I look up and she's coming towards me, and the tears are just running down her cheeks. They're
Mm,
running down her cheeks. And she puts her hand out to me, and I take her hand with my left hand and shake it. And she says, "Sir, I want you to know you have changed my life."
mm,
Maggie, I couldn't I couldn't breathe hardly. I couldn't talk.
mm.
The tears just ran. I cried. I didn't cry boo hoo, boo hoo, but I cried. The tears just ran. How that affected me more. I'd had been affected by anything in years.
Yeah. It seems
Is
as though,
if somebody walked to you right now because of something you said, saw, did, acted, helped, whatever, and you're old enough to and have the wisdom to be able to communicate that through them some way that they've never seen or thought of,
mm,
and their tears are just running, Maggie, and they're crying. Tears are just running. That would have an effect on you.
yeah, yeah,
And so I just believe throughout life, that's what you got to do.
yeah,
I really, I just keep changing lives one at a time,
yeah.
you know?
It's beautiful. Everything you've just shared with me. I'm not speechless, but I have been listening more than I have been talking in an episode
Mhm.
probably ever. And it is because of all of the remarkable things that you've endured and your resilience, but it's also because in all of it, where you could have justified 1,000 times just giving up, but you never did. And I love that. And but what I find so valuable in it is that your purpose and mission and all of that, if God put you on this planet for anything, it is to help people, help others, to be selfless and to not look at the problems of your own and resign, but to take it and use it as fuel to be helping other people.
Mhm.
And it is true what you're saying about being useful to others and having someone tell you that what you're doing is impactful and it's changing my life. I have been fortunate to have words like that spoken to me, and it is absolutely amazing how it feels
It
to
is.
know that you're creating something that's valuable to more people than your own. And
Right, right.
that is, you and I have different stories to tell, but we're on the same mission. What we're doing is that we're creating a platform in which our stories matters, and our stories are not only helpful to ourselves, but they're helpful to other people who just needed to hear your experience and what it taught you so that they can utilize those tools in their own life. And I
Right.
really do appreciate absolutely everything you've shared with me today. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your willingness to share. And thank you for absolutely never giving up. I think that's absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you, Maggie. And you know what? There's an old saying in the Marine Corps that we don't know how to lose. We don't
Yeah.
know how to quit. We're not going to stop, and it's kind of like I had that mindset before the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps just pounded it into my head more. But I don't think about that anymore, getting it from the Marine Corps because I had it before. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
And you're right. I could have stopped any number of times. When they retired me at 41, I had plenty of money. I'd done very well in my life. I could have stopped, but why? I've
Mm.
helped a lot of people since then. I mean, building homes, doing this, doing that. It's just, I, it, I think God gives you all a purpose to be here.
Hmm.
What you make of that is up to you.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of it. So, but at any rate, that's about it, I guess, unless you got other questions. And I mean, I can go on, and it's like I just don't. It's like a gentleman yesterday. We laughed about, memories and thinking about things that have happened, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that time I had a broken arm, or I had a bone sticking out here. It's like I forgot about that. It's like so much happens in your life over time.
Yeah.
And whether you're 20 or 30 or 40, it's not till you get to your 65, 70, 80, 90 that you start to look back and think, wow, I went through quite a bit,
You did go through quite a
But,
bit, and it
but
seems as though you've still built this incredible, beautiful life of yours. And I really do hope that anyone listening to this who have ever considered, I actually recorded an episode quite recently with someone who had experienced someone committing suicide pretty closely, but also someone who had themselves and I mean that's been true for me too, like actually been in such a down in a pit where that's actually a consideration of ours, that like there's no way out of this, it's so painful, it's so terrible. It's more of an emotional pain than a physical pain, but I do really hope that anyone listening to this really honing in on and realizing that all the limitations that we are experiencing in our lives is actually our own mind talking. We are so
yeah, yeah,
capable of
yeah,
doing far more than we give ourselves credit for. And I think what you taught me, which might be the most important thing that I want to take away from this episode, is that I'm not giving my body enough grace for what I'm able to accomplish. You have had incredible surgeries, 73 of them, where your life might as well have ended for several reasons, but your body healed itself. Your body is remarkable. And I know that I have a remarkable body too. I'm just not giving myself enough credit for it. And yeah, so thank you for teaching me that I am
I, well,
really,
I think,
yeah,
Maggie, I just want to I think your body's can heal itself because God allows it to,
yeah,
and all that. But it's your mind that thinks about it. It's your mindset. And it doesn't mean that your mind is set. It means that you have a mindset to you can change that mindset.
Yeah.
But to go out and accomplish, go do, that's your choice.
Yeah.
God gave you that choice, just like He gives your body the choice to heal itself. The
Yeah.
body's going to heal itself because that's something He has control over,
Yeah.
but you have to sit and go into yourself. I can do this.
Yeah.
I can handle this. I can accomplish this.
Yeah.
I can do this. And
Yeah.
with God's grace, you will do it. That's
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, you know?
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I think this is a really great place to wrap it up. I feel as though
Thank
you've
you.
driven so much value. I really do thank you for sharing your story with me. And I thoroughly
You're
believe that
welcome.
someone will be inspired, especially if they find themselves in similar limitations, recognizing that the responsibility is yours and yours alone. But with
Thank you.
God's grace, you will make it.
You will. You will.
Yeah.
It's just you think things will pass and you'll continue on.
Yeah.
Life will move forward and you have that option. So
Yeah.
take it. Do it.
Take it, do
Thank,
it.
th Yep, take it and do it. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'm
Okay.
so happy that you came and talked with me today. Thank you
I'm
so
glad to
much.
be here. And you're a very attractive lady and you got a beautiful smile. You got a
Thank
great
you.
attitude. And that great attitude, great put a smile on it. It always makes people wonder what you've been up to, you know. But if you got a good attitude about things, that's so much important. And you got a good attitude about it, and you're looking to take away stuff and learn and share. And that's another beautiful thing. So
Thank you.
you're a beautiful person within yourself, and you know you really are.
Thank you
Okay,
so much. I thank you. It warms my heart. It really does. It makes me
Uh,
smile even brighter.
you're
And
welcome.
yeah, so you
Thank
do
you.
have that beautiful impact. You do.
Thanks, Maggie. God bless.
God bless.